All right. So this is our Animal Farm propaganda project. I love this artwork, by the way. I hope you guys have enjoyed it on your. It's been on the cover of your study guides. I just think it's pretty cool, on theme. So let's start with what is propaganda. I know you guys may have some ideas, but this is just a minute video and it gives a really good definition of what propaganda is.
In this History Illustrated video, we're going to look at the vocabulary word propaganda. Now, propaganda has to deal with opinions. So if you have an opinion, you might favor one thing or another. Now, propaganda has to deal more with the media. And what I mean by the media is typically like the news on TV or a newspaper or something like that. These people would be saying something. Now, propaganda would be saying their opinions. And their opinions would be trying to promote their point of view or their political cause. So if you hear a person on the news saying they like or dislike the president or somebody in politics, they are giving their opinion. They are trying to convince, here's another word for you, convince you to believe the same thing as them. So propaganda doesn't necessarily give you the truth, they will give you misleading facts to convince you to believe what they believe.
Okay, so propaganda, you heard it there. They give you, it's a way to convince somebody to agree with their political leaning, and they do it not with the truth, but with misleading facts. Misleading facts. So that's a pretty important detail there. Misleading facts. Another way you could look at it is half truths or white lies, right? We say a white lie is like when you say something that's like it technically is a lie, but it's not really that bad, and it's also sort of true, right? And a half truth is kind of along those same lines, like I'm trying to think of a good example of a half truth. But like basically, when you say something and there is a little bit of truth mixed in with it, but it's also misleading. That's what propaganda is built on. And we saw a lot of examples of propaganda throughout Animal Farm. A lot of it came from Squealer, because Squealer he represented the minister of propaganda in Russia. He's the one that anything that Napoleon wanted said, Squealer was the one that came out and would basically be his mouthpiece and would smooth things over for the animals. And it was Napoleon and Squealer who all along were like, it's Snowball's fault. Snowball is the one. And they would give basic reasonings, like when animals would be like, but he helped with the windmill, and they would say, but that was just to distract you, comrades. Don't you see? He was in league with Mr. Jones from the beginning. And it's their way of taking the truth, which is that Snowball was indeed helping with this windmill, and now twisting it and messing it up in your minds. And now when you're hearing your leader saying, well, actually, I know that's what it seems like to you, but this is actually the case, you start to believe them. It's easy for us reading this to be like, wow, these animals are really gullible. But yeah, there's a lot of examples. Anytime you heard Napoleon justifying things like, oh, no, it said no animal shall sleep on a bed with sheets. You just don't remember that. Because anything can be a bed. No, just with sheets you can't do. No, animals shouldn't drink alcohol to excess. We can drink alcohol, just not a lot of it, right? They keep changing things and justifying things, partial truths, misleading facts to persuade the animals to take their side. All right, let's get on to next slide. Next slide. Next slide, not this one. There we go. All right. Is this the one I wanted? Yeah. All right, so here is a slide full of a bunch of historical examples of propaganda. There is a kind of a mixture here of propaganda. Let's see, what did I put on here? I have World War I, Cold War, and World War II propaganda are the main ones that I have on here. And truthfully, when we think of propaganda in our culture, these three eras, World War I, World War II, and the Cold War, those are the main areas we think of propaganda. But don't be misled. Propaganda certainly still exists today. Well, just looking at some of these examples here, up here, Uncle Sam, I want you for the U.S. Army. Classic. We all know that poster. It's become a staple in America. It's like, this was like the creation of the Uncle Sam character, what he looks like. And this is a World War I poster encouraging people to go enlist for the military. You can see down here, nearest recruiting station is where you needed to go to enlist in the Army. So not really a political statement necessarily, but basically they're trying to say, we need you and you need to participate. It's kind of almost shaming you. If you care about this country, if you care about the US, you'll enlist in the Army. That's kind of the message there. Over here, I don't know what this says in German, but Jude refers to Jews, and this is a Nazi Germany World War II era propaganda. And you don't need to know what it says really to understand the message. This artwork here is meant to represent a Jewish individual. And what do you see about this Jewish individual? We see he doesn't look pleasant. He doesn't look nice. He looks kind of sinister, kind of like he's like going to cause problems, cause trouble, that he's evil. And of course, Nazi Germany would be sending that message. Of course they would. They want to point out how evil the Jews are, because why? Because they're trying to persuade their citizens that they need to kill all the Jews, right? That's like the message. And if you portray them to look like this, yeah, you're going to feel like if you saw somebody that looked like that in person, you would feel a little nervous for yourself. Like it's a little scary, right? That's the point. They want you to feel that way because they want you to agree with them to kill the Jews. Because if Hitler just came and said, we're going to kill the Jews, you'd be like, hold up, what now? Why are we doing that? But when he displays his messages with this kind of artwork, all of a sudden you can start to think of things in your mind of, oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't want my family to be endangered by these people, right? Even though it's a lie, it's the artwork here is so powerful. All right, Rosie the Riveter. This is another classic American example of propaganda. We can do it. This was to promote the women's, not women's suffrage, but all the women who worked during World War II. A lot of women went to work and were important in not only providing for their families while their men were off at war, but also in manufacturing key things for the army. So some of these women would be involved in manufacturing things like weapons. Some would be in charge of manufacturing more like the clothing side for soldiers, whether it's like, their armor that they're wearing, uniforms, things like that. These women were very instrumental in that. And so this is a poster. This is an encouraging one. Like, you can do it. We can do this together. We just have to step up. Our men are off at sea. We can stand up and do this on our own. Okay. Now, I'm not going to break down every single propaganda piece in here, but there are a lot of examples on here. I talked about guilt. Here's another one that's great for guilt. Daddy, what did you do in the Great War? Now, the Great War is World War I. And basically it's saying, hey, you want your kids asking you what you did and you say, I don't have any answer? No, you want to be able to say, oh, well, in the Great War, I fought against blah, 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 blah. I did these heroic acts. It's a play on guilt, right? And specifically towards men. Men would have the ego that if somebody said, what did you do in the war? And you didn't have an answer, you'd be like, you would want to have something you could respond with, right? Let's see, some of my other favorites on here. Favorites just in terms of the like artwork and stuff. This one is another classic one. Destroy this mad brute, enlist U.S. Army. This is a U.S. propaganda during World War I. And this gorilla here represents a German soldier. Now, don't get it twisted. The Germans in World War I were not exactly the same as the Germans from World War II. The Nazis were way worse than the Germans in World War I. The World War I Germans were not trying to exterminate the Jews, right? But they were still the enemy to the U.S. And so the U.S. portrayed them as such, carrying, I guess, what is presumably a U.S. woman, looking like he's going to kill her. He has this bat here that says culture. He's going to destroy our culture. Therefore, you must destroy him. So enlist in the U.S. Army. This one here, don't know. This is a German propaganda poster. Again, I don't know what it says because I don't speak German, but you can see the British flag, the US flag, the Russian flag, and behind there, another evil looking Jewish individual. And you know they're Jewish based on the gold star. And clearly what they're saying here is, look at Russia, US, and Britain. They are our enemies because they are protecting this evil person. That's kind of the message they're giving there. You don't want this for your child with the Nazi youth, right? Another US World War II piece. And then the last one I want to point out down. Oh, by the way, here's some communist ones. Look how heroic these guys look. Holding the hammer and the sickle and the sun. All right. Look how hard, like they look super heroic. Like I want to be like them. This guy looks like freaking Superman over here. Like it's really motivating. Like, man, this is great. That, you know, Russia and their communism, that must be great. Over here, this is, I believe, I don't know if this is supposed to be North Korea. It looks more like Korean characters to me, but we can see again, look how happy these people look under communism. Okay. Look at this bottom one that just got covered up by that bar. These people all look happy under the leadership of Stalin. Oh, here's another either Chinese or Korean one. These people all look very happy under communism. And meanwhile, America, this one, America under communism, everyone's burning up. There's a fire raging. Okay, so propaganda can either send a very negative message, it can bring about guilt, it can bring about fear, or it can bring about a sense of pride. All right, we see pride with we can do it. These communist ones where people are happy. It can bring about guilt with I want you to enlist, you should enlist, you should enlist. And then we see fear with these pictures of the Jews, the destroy this mad brute. Is this tomorrow? All of these are great examples of propaganda and how there's different emotions that are played on. All right. I really would love to show you this video because it goes through great examples of propaganda. I don't know that we're going to have time. So I'm going to finish explaining what we're doing with this project. And if we have time at the end, then I will show the video. If not, you can watch it on your own time because this presentation will be available for you on Canvas once I get that post updated. Excuse me. Don't play it. Thank you. All right. So you guys are going to be creating your own examples of propaganda, right? We just looked at all those historical examples. And here's one that I found last year just online. I don't know who made it. Okay, but this is their example of Animal Farm propaganda. We can see the different animals down here: pig, horse, sheep, and I think there's a chicken or a duck maybe. But up here, we have a pig, presumably Comrade Napoleon. We sleep soundly because he watches over us. Now, this is a message of safety, right? Saying the world is a better place with Napoleon as our leader, right? We can sleep safely. We can have peace because Napoleon is our leader, right? That's the message they're displaying here. And again, remember, I know I said a lot of them deal with fear or guilt or pride, but a lot of posters, they can play off of any emotion. The point is that propaganda uses our emotions to persuade us to agree with something that's usually politically related. And so here, Comrade Napoleon, he's trying to make the point, hey, Snowball is dangerous. I brought peace to the animal farm, and therefore we should sleep soundly because he watches over us. So these are some student examples from last year, and I'm actually going to come back to this in a minute. I want to talk a little bit more about what the project entails. So things to remember about propaganda from what we've discussed. Number one, it uses provocative images and words to encourage an action or to oppose something. Okay. Now, when I say provocative, that does not mean that you should be providing pictures of scantily clad individuals. Okay. It's not what that means. Provocative just means that it provokes you. And when something provokes you, it brings about or elicits a very, very outward action, if that makes sense. So, so we're looking for images that cause you to kind of gasp, like, and so like this one here is this tomorrow, seeing the soldiers in America burning up America under communism. That's a provocative image, right? It makes you go, oh my gosh. Okay. So provocative images, they play often on emotions of fear, anger, guilt, pride. It's essentially an advertisement, though it's more directed towards politics and war. And lastly, it uses bold colors, big lettering, and usually cartoon-like or caricature drawings, and often a catchy or memorable phrase. I want you. We can do it. Is this tomorrow? Big, bold letters, easy phrase. These are 3-word phrases that are easy for people to remember. Bright, bold colors that stand out: yellow and orange and green, yellow and blue. This one's not quite as bold of colors, but again, it stands out with the big, bold lettering. This is advertising 101. If any of you after high school go into marketing, you'll learn that when you make advertisements, this is how you advertise on these pieces of propaganda. The difference, of course, is that these are all, again, politically energized. They're all focused on something related to politics. So what are you guys doing for this project? That's probably what you're wondering. Well, first of all, just wanted to point your attention to up here. This is one artist's drawing of what the animal farm flag might have looked like. If you recall, they had the green for the fields of England. They had a hoof and they had a horn to represent the animals. And obviously he meant to draw it like this to represent a little bit of the flag of the USSR with the hammer and the sickle and the star. You can tell that there's some similarity there, and that was very intentional. But this project due next Friday, so we're going to spend the rest of our time here before winter break working on this propaganda project. You're going to choose from the options below to create a propaganda poster. You must include vivid imagery and language, and the goal is to persuade. So there are 5 options of different propaganda you can do, and you only have to choose one of these. but you could go with Old Major against Mr. Jones. So Old Major trying to persuade you to go against Mr. Jones. Old Major persuading you to join the revolution. Have pride in Animal Farm, be animals. Napoleon persuading you to go against Snowball, or Snowball persuading you to go against Napoleon. And then lastly, you could do Boxer urging the rest of the animals to increase their efforts. Now, I have a document that we'll look at in a minute, but I want to go back and look at some of my student examples from last year. These were probably the 4 best ones that came out of our project. The ones that people just did, they totally got what they were trying to do. So starting over here on the left, he will return unless we unite. What do they do great about this propaganda? Well, they have the bright color of red in the background, and they have very ominous looking people, right? And they use vocabulary straight from the book. He will return unless we unite. This is very vocabulary, very like directly related to the revolution. Okay, and I love this picture how they have the horse and the sheep and the pig. They're all kind of banding together here, watching each other's backs the way they're standing here to fend off against these humans. I think this was my all-time, this was my favorite one from last year. It's done very well. It totally conveys the message. Bright colors, cartoonish images, and big, bold letters with the primary message, right? And this provokes the emotion of fear. All right. This one, Snowball has done this. Snowball was in league with Jones from the very start. This is a direct quote from the book that they used for their propaganda, which you may do if you choose to do so. And as you can see, they depicted Snowball as a devil of sorts, okay? Fire all about him. They literally gave him the horns and the pitchfork, okay? So this was a great example too. Obviously, they're painting him in a very, bad, evil picture. And this one is also dealing with fear. This one, Boxer, we can do it. I will work harder. All right, bright colors, cartoon. It checks all the boxes. And this one was, they told me they were going based off of the Rosie the Riveter. Okay, they're using that one as their example. But we see Boxer here, his whole maxim, right? He always was saying, I will work harder. And so this is their example of Boxer trying to encourage the animals that they can do it together and that if they work harder. So they're using, again, propaganda language and language from the book or the revolution. And then this one was fun too. Obviously, there's some similarities between this one and this one over here. Okay. This one, I really like the colors they have here. I love the yellow, the red, the way they did this with like making it look bright, like this is dangerous. And then they still had the white on the inside. The colors were just really well done on this. I believe this group was running out of time and didn't get time to like do the guy as much as they wanted to. So it does look a little crude, I guess, but overall, this is I really like this image, and it's so simple. It's so simply done. And down here it says Animal Farm is salvation. Okay, so remember, their whole message is the humans are bad. Manor Farm is bad. Mr. Jones is bad. The cure to all of this is Animal Farm. So just the simple words, Animal Farm is salvation, really hammers home this message here. So these are some examples. These will be available for you to look at also on Canvas, just that you can kind of think about here. We see, again, a variety of different ones. This would be the Napoleon against Snowball, Boxer encouraging animals, and then both of these would be Old Major persuading you to go against the humans, right? So the other thing I want to point out, some of you may be looking at this and like these two and being like, oh dang, that's like some really good artwork. I'm not capable of that. I can barely do stick figures. Well, look at this one. Okay, like these animals are not like they're not like drawn compared to these. Like these are very well done. These are definitely more basic, right? And like look at this and these people. Look how that is not that hard. So even if you are not a skilled uh artist, you don't need to be for this project, okay? You can come up with a very convincing, again, these were my top 4 favorites. You can come up with a very convincing piece of propaganda. Just look at this, like that was not that hard for them to draw, okay? So you can convey a message without being a skilled artist. So I don't want to hear anybody complaining about not being good at drawing, because you can still do this without it. And I don't care if you want to trace. All right, people last year, they might have traced some of these. I'm not sure. I didn't watch that closely to see if they were tracing or not. I don't care if you trace. The point is, are you getting the message across? Okay, let me see where we're at on time. All right, I gotta go fast here. So, coming over here to the Animal Farm Propaganda Project. Here is the prompt. After reading or listening to Animal Farm by George Orwell, analyze the point of view, characterization, syntax, and language. Create a propaganda poster using textual evidence to support the analysis. The purpose. The next 2 summatives are about understanding character. The focus of this summative is understanding and analyzing a character's point of view. You will be accomplishing this by creating a propaganda poster. What is propaganda? Propaganda are forms of media or print that are intended to persuade the consumer to choose a certain side. These are usually very loud, aggressive, and sometimes provocative images and words with a goal of primarily suggesting the opposing side is evil or inferior. You will be working to create a piece of propaganda in poster form from one of the following perspectives. So here are the perspectives here you can choose from again. It is important that you use proper tone, mood, and grammar in these posters, as well as the vocabulary of the revolution. So for example, instead of saying people, you would say comrades. And as I showed you in that example, a lot of them use quotes from the book or a version of quotes from the book. Those are other ways you can include the quote unquote vocabulary of the revolution. And then attached on here are also the rubrics that you will be graded on. As you can see, there are 4 separate summative grades for this. So please take this project seriously. This will be a fun project if you put the work into it. Then this document will also be available for you on Canvas. This document is called Submission of Animal Farm Propaganda to the Minister of Propaganda. Instructions. Comrades, please on this document post your final creation of your propaganda so it may be submitted to Comrade Squealer, who is our Minister of Propaganda on this here Animal Farm. You may use drawings and artwork of your own or create one using resources such as Google. Okay, if you're really at a loss, you can do this on Google. Whatever you do not deal with man. Remember, comrades, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. All animals are equal. You must have your propaganda submitted by 12/18, that's next Friday, or face the same punishment and judgment as that of the traitor Snowball. Okay, so basically I've, other than those instructions, I just have a blank piece of paper here where you can submit your work. And so what I'm looking for with this is this. I would really love for you guys to be drawing this. I think you guys drawing and creating your own will give you the biggest option for creativity and the best looking propaganda. If you draw, you're going to likely end up with results more like this. Okay. If you choose to do things like pick images online, you can do that. It just may not look quite as cool. Okay. You're really going to have to play with how to layer images on top of each other if you do use the like pictures from the internet, whereas the drawing, you can like draw it however you want, right? So I don't know what craft supplies you have at home. Okay. Last year I supplied my students with crayons and colored pencils and whatever. I don't know what supplies you have at home, but I'm sure you at least can get a hold of paper and pencils. If you have any crayons, color is obviously important, very important with Animal Farm, so, or with propaganda. So please, if you have anything that you can color with, please be sure to use that, or ask your parents maybe if you can get some. I mean, to be honest, I'm not trying to tell you to buy stuff, but if you go to the dollar store, you can get a box of crayons, right, for $1. So it'd be really nice to have some color. I'm not going to force you to, okay, but I am going to force you at least to draw and come up with your message and color, if at all possible, to submit this. Now, normally, if we were in person, I would have this displayed across the room and we'd have posters we'd hang up, but we don't have that. So when you are done with your propaganda, again, this will be up on Canvas. You're basically going to take a picture of your propaganda that you have drawn. You'll either use your phone or whatever, or you can use the camera on your Chromebook, take a picture of your propaganda and post that picture here on the Animal Farm document. You can simply post a picture by going to insert image, and then you should be able to go from there, camera, and you can take a picture of it and it'll pop up on the main document. Okay. All right. That is it for this discussion about Animal